What's up guys, it's Jordan, back with another e-commerce video. In this video I want to talk about a hot topic, one that I get asked about frequently. Once you get those first couple of sales on a product, how can you scale that product up to bring in more revenue and more sales for you and your business? So in this video I'm going to talk about scaling, the multiple methods to do it, and what's been working for me recently. So without further ado, let's get started. So firstly, I would like to go over 3 things that you should consider before you decide to start scaling your campaign. The first thing is that finding a product and audience match that works and brings you consistent sales is the most difficult part of the journey. Once you've found something that's working, scaling it typically isn't that difficult. There are a variety of methods that I use and that others use that aren't that difficult to follow, that just require spending a little bit more money. Now, the second thing that you want to consider is, can your supplier handle an increase in orders? A lot of times people will scale blindly, and I've been a victim of this myself, and what happens is you continue to get more and more orders while your supplier runs lower on their supply, and it gets to a point where they can't handle it anymore, and you have a lot of customers that are not going to get their products for 2 to 3 weeks longer than it normally would be because your supplier has to go into a rush to manufacture more products. This is something that you want to avoid, and it's easily avoidable just by reaching out to your supplier before you decide to scale and giving them a heads up that you plan on increasing the order quantity. Last thing you want to consider is cash flow. Now, you don't always need cash flow to scale. You can scale your campaign slowly to where they bring cash flow to help you scale, but if you want to scale fast and scale aggressively to do bigger numbers in a shorter period of time, you're going to have some cash flow to spend on ads and fulfillment. And obviously, as you get more sales, you get more money coming in, but you don't get this money immediately. So therefore, you do need to have a little bit of budget to help you get started and get the ball running. So yeah, I want to talk now about the actual methods and strategies that I use to scale my campaigns. And these aren't just me, these are strategies that I found on Ecom Empires and on other Facebook groups that a lot of other people are having success with. So we're going to go into PowerPoint and I'm going to show you guys some of this stuff. So let's get into that. So like I said before, there are multiple ways to scale your campaign, and once you find a winning product, the scaling part isn't really the most difficult. So now, like I said, we're going to go over some of the methods that I've been using and that I've used in the past to scale my campaigns. So first, I want to talk about when you should scale, and I talked about this in my last video, but for those who missed it, I'm just going to do a quick run through of the metrics to look for when you're looking to scale one of your ad sets. So firstly, you're going to want to look for high return on ad spend, or ROAS. It's pretty self-explanatory why you want to look for this. Essentially, this is just the return on your initial investment in ad spend. You spend $5, you make 20, your ROAS would be 4. Therefore, you want to look for around a 3 times return on ad spend when you're at the low budget testing phase. Truthfully, you want it to be high as it could be. Really, I like it to be over 5 before I try to scale. But you can attempt to scale if it's over 3. 3 is a good number to go off of, but 5 and above is what you should aim for. The main reason for this is that as you scale your campaigns, it's typical that the return on ad spend is going to decrease. Now, this isn't always the case, but most of the time it is. And if the latter happens, you're in for a crazy good ad set and lots of sales down the line. So yeah. Another thing to look for is multiple sales on your low budget ad set. A lot of people will get one sale and just say, oh, this is a winner, and then they fall in love with that ad set. But the truth of the matter is, there's what's called a fluke sale, and a fluke sale is simply somebody buying your product in that audience that you're targeting, and then you're not getting any more sales. So what happens is you get that sale, it gets you hyped up, you get all excited, and then you get no more sales. And in that time period, you may spend more money on this ad set, which makes you end up not even being profitable on that first attempt. So therefore, you're going to want to look for multiple sales. Typically, I try to say like 2 to 3 if it's on a $5 budget ad set. If it's on a $20 budget or a $10 budget, maybe you will want a little bit more. But the main thing that matters is your return on your ad spend. If you're spending $5 a day to sell a $9 product, you're probably going to be losing money. So you want to have your products valued a little bit higher so you can have a higher return on your investment. Another metric that I look for is cheap link clicks, and the main reason for this is that if this stat holds true, people are interested in your product. If you're getting a lot of people to click the link to check out what your product page looks like and the price and such, that means you found something that this audience is interested in. And this is typically a good sign, especially if the sales come along with it. Now, don't just look for cheap link clicks. You have to have the sales to go along with it. A lot of people will see cheap link clicks or a high CTR and say, oh wow, this looks really promising. And sure, it may be a promising ad set, but if it's not getting any sales over a 2 to 3 day time period, it's probably not going to be a winner. So try not to fall in love with stats like that and focus on the ROAS and the sales. So as for scaling strategies, there's 4 main ones that come to mind. The first one would be vertical scaling. And vertical scaling is basically increasing the budget on your ad sets that are working fairly well. And I'm going to talk about each of these individually down the line. Horizontal scaling is creating new ad sets targeting different audiences for your product. So let's say you launch a campaign with 5 ad sets and 4 out of 5 ad sets do well. Maybe you should launch 5 more ad sets to try to test 5 more other audiences. And I'll talk more about this down the line. Lookalike audiences are another good way to scale. Essentially, what a lookalike audience is when you take a custom audience, such as people who purchased your product, people who visited your website, people who watched 90% of your video. You take that audience and you give that audience to Facebook, and Facebook will find the people that are most similar to those in that audience. I don't fully understand how the technology works, but essentially that is what is happening behind the scenes when your lookalike audience is being created. Lookalike audiences are incredibly powerful, as you can imagine, because if you're taking a seed of people who are really interested in your product, then Facebook's going to find people who are like those who are interested in your product. And it's pretty self-explanatory to why that can be of benefit to you. The last method that I could think of is switching up your placement. So if something's working extremely well on Facebook, you may want to try to market it on Instagram as well. And I'm going to share my thoughts on this down the line. So the first one I want to talk about is vertical scaling. Now, traditionally, this is the one that works best for me, and it's one that you're going to use regardless, no matter what method you pick. It's a standard way to scale an ad set. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to increase the budget. So this really depends on your personal preference and what works for you, but for me, I prefer not to duplicate my ad sets. I prefer to recreate the ad set and increase the budget on the newly created ad set. Now, just in my past results with split testing this, duplication sometimes can be buggy and not produce the same results as making a fresh ad set does, so I always recreate the ad set. And like I said, when you recreate that ad set, you're going to want to increase the budget. Typically, the map that I follow is I'll test with $5. Lately, I've been testing with higher budgets, but for now, let's say I'm testing with $5. I'll go from $5, and if it's doing well on $5 with a high return, it has multiple sales and good metrics, then I'll make a new ad set with the same exact audience, not changing anything, to the same ad, and I'm going to change the budget on that ad set to $30. Now, I'm going to see how it performs at that $30 level. If the sales keep coming consistently and that ROAS stays at about 3 plus, then it looks promising. From there, I'll let it run for 2 to 3 days and see if it holds consistent, and then I'll launch it up to a $100 ad set and repeat the process and keep going down the line. Now, as you start to ramp up your budgets, just a little tip, duplicate the ad inside of the ad set. So once you launch that $300 or $1,000 budget ad set, you should go into the ad set and duplicate the ad 3 times. What this is going to do, it's going to take your ad and it's going to display it to different pockets of audiences since you have 3 different ads. And what you can do is you can pay close attention to the 3 ads and you can see which one's outperforming the others, and then you can kill the other 2. This helps out a bunch, and I do this every single time. So as you go to the higher budgets, I highly recommend doing this. You should never, ever, ever up the budget on the ad set. Now, some people do this, and it works for them, but a lot of my friends, and myself included, don't have success with this, because what happens when you do this is it's going to reset the optimization on that ad set. It's not going to ruin it or destroy the optimization, but it's going to bring that optimization back down to square one as it builds up in the learning phase again. And this isn't necessarily that good. If you've got something that's working really well, you don't want to mess it up and hinder it and put it behind for a couple of days. Therefore, you just let it keep running, and then you make a new ad set with the same audience. And if your audience size is big enough, like I talked about in my other video, you shouldn't really be worried about overlap or anything like that. As long as your audience is over 1 million, typically overlap isn't an issue until you spend a lot of money on the campaign. So you're going to want to test broad and use the breakdown to determine who your buyers are. Now, what I mean by this is that on that $5 level, you don't want to launch it targeting 18 to 25-year-olds because truthfully, you don't know if that's the people who are going to buy your product. So on those $5, $30, even $100, I usually test it as broad as I can, male and female, all ages, all locations, etc. Now, once I get up to that $300 and that $1,000 range, maybe I will narrow it down. If I see that at the $100 level, only females were purchasing, then when I launch that higher budget ad set, I'm going to target just females. So that's that. That's vertical scaling, and vertical scaling is something that you're going to be doing regardless of what method you choose. You're going to be scaling your lookalike audiences this way, and when I talk about horizontal scaling, you're going to see that you need to also scale your campaigns that way with vertical scaling. So just be comfortable with that and knowing what budgets to set, and just know that all that you're doing is spending a little bit more money to bring more traffic to an audience that's already working well. So the next thing I want to talk about is lookalike audiences. The method that I use for scaling with lookalike audiences, I can't take any credit for. I got it from Steve Tan in his group, and the Tan Brothers method, I guess we'll call it. Basically, what you do is you make a custom audience of 4 objectives. So you do people who have gone to your store and viewed content of the product, added the product to their cart, purchased the product, and initiated checkout. So you should have 4 custom audiences. Once you have those 4 custom audiences created, you're going to want to make lookalike audiences covering all variations. So 1%, 1 to 5%, and 10%. Lastly, you want to do this with any available countries. So when you're targeting worldwide, it's going to be difficult to do this till you spend a little bit of money on the campaign. But for you to make a lookalike audience for something, you have to have a certain number of conversions in that area. For me, typically, the bulk of those conversions come from the big 5 countries, so United States, United Kingdom, Canada, New Zealand, and Australia. So that's usually the lookalike audiences location that I will select. So now I'm going to go into my ads manager and I'm going to show you guys how you can create your lookalike audiences with the separate variations and how you can create custom audiences as well. So let's go do that. So creating lookalike audiences and the way that I described it is not that difficult at all, and I will show you how to do that now. Simply come to your asset library to the Audiences tab under Assets, and once you're here, just click the blue Create Audience button, select Lookalike Audience, and then all you have to do is select your source audience. So in this case, you would pick the custom audience that I talked about before, whether that be the view content, add to cart, initiate checkout, whatever custom audience you decide to work with, you place that in the source, and then you select the location. In this example, I'm going to use the United States because I know that I have enough customers in that space. So after that, you'll be given that 1% lookalike audience, and that's good, but like I suggested before, we're going to want to test the multiple variants. So doing that's very simple. All you have to do is click Show Advanced Options at the bottom, and as you can see, it pops up now with 3 audiences, and all you have to do is mess with them on the sliders. So take this last one, drag it to 10, take this one, drag it to 5, and just like that, you're done. So now you've set up 3 different audiences. You have a lookalike 1%, a lookalike 1 to 5%, and a lookalike 5 to 10%. There's no overlap with these audiences as they're all their own individual audiences. Notice the first one, it says 1%, but really it's 0 to 1%. The next one, you would think the 1% would overlap, but no, it's 1% to 5%, and the same thing holds. So after that, you just simply hit Create Audience, and you can repeat this process over and over and over again for however many variants you need to do. So that's that, and once you've got those set up, you're good to go. You can make ad sets with them, and you can target it to the ad that you want to, and you can attempt to scale that way. Typically for me, lookalike audiences do really well, and I've been able to scale a lot of campaigns using them. There's just 2 more methods that I want to talk about real quickly. The first one being horizontal scaling. So there's not much to explain with this one. It's pretty self-explanatory. If your product is selling to one audience, it is likely that there are other people that will be interested in it. Therefore, you're really holding yourself back by not at least attempting to see who else would be interested in buying it. So to do this, simply create more ad sets within your campaign targeting different interests. So you never know who's going to buy your product. This is why we test the audiences in the first place. So even though you may think that you've picked the perfect 10 audiences in your testing campaign, that 11th audience that you didn't launch, that could have been your winning audience. Therefore, it's safe to always test once you found something that's working, because you never know what you're missing out on. So you want to test all possible audiences that you can think of. I'm talking everything. And this is when you find something that works. Please don't do this for something that's not working, because then you're just trying to force a bad product and you're going to lose a lot of money. But once you found something that works, test everything that you can. And on broad products, don't be afraid to test no interest targeting, or just targeting behaviors like engaged shoppers, online shopping, top spenders. You will be able to find a lot of buyers in these audiences. So once you found something that works, don't be hesitant. If you think something might work, test it and give it a go. Horizontal scaling is a good method. Once you feel like once your product feels like it's burnt out or it's stopping getting sales, horizontal scaling is a good way to revive that product and bring it back to life. The last method is probably the most self-explanatory of all. It would be moving your ads from Facebook to Instagram. Basically, you would just make a new ad set with your winning audience and change the placement to Instagram. There's not much more to it. You've already got the audience, you've already got the product, you already got the ad creative. It's just a matter of putting it in a different place. So the only tip that I would really suggest here is create the ad through the ads manager. Don't use a dark post or a Facebook page post for your Instagram ad, because typically it will have a CTA, but it will say learn more. And also, Facebook posts usually have links in them, and links are not clickable on the IG ads. So I usually recreate it with no link and good copy and a call to action that says shop now. Also, just because one creative worked well for you on Facebook, it's worth your while to test another creative on Instagram. This is true for photo and video ads. You really don't know how your audience is going to react on a different platform. Therefore, when I do launch a new campaign to that new placement, I always split test a new creative, because you never know what you're going to miss out on. Thank you guys for watching this video. I really appreciate you all checking it out. If the video helped you at all, or if you learned anything from it, then please leave a like. And also give me a comment if you want to see another video from me, or any specific video topics that you want covered. Or maybe you have some criticism about this video. I would really appreciate hearing it. So please like this video and give it a comment. Also, if you enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be pumping out content like this consistently now. I'm planning on doing at least one video every single week. So yeah, drop that subscribe, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.